All good.
All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Thank whoever brought you here. To my regular listeners, you've done it again. You've hit the play button, so you know what's going to happen. You know your life is going to change. You know the moment's going to get a little better. You know whatever happens to you in the next, whatever happens to you next, it's nothing but positivity on this show. And that's what I strive to do, whether it's just myself speaking to you or there's a guest I have on. We are just simply here to give you something that is going to make you better in the moment and make your life just a little bit better. That's what we're here for. Today, we have Tyler Hayden, founder of the Team Building School, who, right up my alley, right up what this show's been all about in terms of teamwork, expressing the importance of teamwork and making sure everybody can utilize the lessons in some sort of way, especially you business owners. It's so very important that you incorporate levels of teamwork into what it is you do. So all that being said, Tyler, welcome to the show. How are you?
One man, I am stoked to be here. I thanks a lot for the invitation. I can't wait to chat with you and all your listeners. So yeah, let's
Yes,
get to it.
I'm telling you, like I was telling you before, there's a lot of ground we have to cover, and I will not be surprised if this episode gets long-winded and it goes for, again, there's no time limits when it comes to this
Awesome.
show, but you have an incredible amount of material out there. One can look at you, one can look you up and say, man, that dude is my dream. That gold, everything. He has 28 books, keynote speaker, been entrepreneuring from since the beginning of time. But one of the things that really caught my attention when I listened to your story is you grew up with a lot of challenging things happen to you. I believe you said
100%.
your dad was in a disability, you survived sexual abuse, you had a lisp, you were teased as a kid. So many things that, again, if people looked at you now, they say, man, you're a success, but you were able to take some of those things and apply it. So the best way to start off this conversation is kind of go back to your childhood a
Sure.
little bit, speak to
Sure.
us a little bit about what it was like then, and then we'll kind of go from there, man.
Yeah, man, I was the fat kid. Like I was the fat kid in class, and that was a lot of that had to do with just trying to protect myself. I was sexually abused when I was little. I mean, that's part of my story.
Mhm.
I couldn't read till I was in grade 3. I had a lisp. I have 4 eyes. I had glasses. My parents been divorced. We've all got that pile of stuff that kind of
So much of
happens
that
to
stuff,
us.
right?
I was the last kid who was picked on most teams, other than like the anchor for tug of war. I was really good at that. But all those things that kind of came along as opportunities for growth, opportunities for resilience,
Mhm.
opportunities to kind of learn what my special skills were. My one of my superpowers is I have attention deficit, and my ADHD gives me the opportunity to be able to think in different ways and to be able to have unprecedented amounts of energy. To not be afraid to make those challenging thoughts, or to take those risks. So all those things kind of play into who we become as an adult, and how we focus on our business, how we focus on our family, how we focus on community. All those pieces that happen as a child lay the groundwork, and we get to choose whether or not how we're gonna move forward with them, right? And that's the tipping point. That's the choice, and that's the mentors. That's the
Mhm.
safe communities. That's all those things that we
Right.
help to create, right?
So, I mean, you rattled off a lot of things, in my opinion, that one of those things could have torn a lot of people, just kind of made it so people give up on life, whether it's you being the fat kid, whether it's you being
Yeah.
someone that couldn't read till 3 years old. And I teach now, so I know how some teachers look at those kids I mean, not 3 years old, excuse me, but in third
Grade
grade.
3, yeah.
I know, yeah, you couldn't read at three either, probably not.
Yeah, I couldn't read at 3 either, but who's kidding? No, that's fine.
Right, right. But third grade, as a teacher now, I know the way some teachers look at those kids and they kind
Yeah,
of shove them off to the side. When
yeah.
would you say specifically was the time in which you started looking at all these things as an opportunity, as you just said, as opposed to being a detriment, as opposed to being something that was going to be your excuse to not being a success? When did
To
you
be
start
some.
looking at it as, okay, this is my opportunity, not
Yeah.
something that's detrimental?
I had an amazing teacher named Mr. Gaynor, and Mr. Gaynor was he was the tipping point for me. He was that teacher that all of a sudden I went from being in remedial class where I was tracing my finger on pages trying to say the letter S and put my
Wow.
tongue in the right spot behind my tooth, and like so from there to not being able to read to sitting in these remedial classes with kids who are challenged in 100 different ways,
Mhm.
to him going, you know what, Tyler, actually, I think you belong in enrichment class. And it's in my school, we had this thing where some of the kids would go and they would get remedial help to kind of fill in some of those gaps. And then there were these other kids who were deemed as super smart
Mhm.
who would go off and they would do all these other things. So first thing he did was he sent me to this program because I was comedic as a result of kind of some of my detriments.
Mhm.
Comedy kind of came out and humor. So he sent me to this acting class. And then the next thing you know, I was in this
Wow.
innovation class where we were inventing things and coming up with the next thing was this fantasy class where we were like coming up with like these worlds. And
Mhm.
and next thing you know, I was smart. And it all comes
Wow.
down to the work that I'm doing now in
Yeah.
team building is around multiple intelligences. Mr. Gaynor knew that my intelligences might not have been fit inside the rigor of the classroom and in what those walls look like.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what I had were special skills that were enhanced and different, and equally as valuable,
Mhm.
but not necessarily valuable in that kind of traditional school system. So
Right.
he was able to access and help me access some of those very cool things that I could do and use my art skills, use
Yeah.
my creative thinking skills, my kinesthetic skills that all then started to develop. And that's the work that we do at Team Building School, and that's
Yeah.
that's we've cracked the code on how to engage teams based on our learning styles. That's what it all comes down to. It's
Yes. About
that simple.
what age, out of curiosity, what age were
Yeah.
you when you met Mr. Grainer? Grainer is the name?
Mr. Gaynor, yeah. So he
Gainer,
was
yeah.
my
Well,
grade
shout out to Mr.
7.
Gainer, please, man. Shout out if you're listening.
Yeah, shout out to him. He's one of the good ones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there's thousands of good ones in every community. He just happened to be mine. It was grade 7. It was grade 7, and I was in a little farm community, so like Amish community. We had a
Now, this
a
was
little
this in Canada that
yeah,
you
yeah.
grew up,
So
right?
in Kitchener-Waterloo,
Mhm.
so I grew up in a little farming community. We had Betsy Bauman in our class. She left
Oh,
us in grade 8 because she got married. She was an old order Mennonite student, and we had a small class of like 20 kids. And Mr. Gaynor was our teacher,
wow.
and I was blessed to have him for 2 years. So actually, grade 7 and grade 8.
Man.
So yeah, it's amazing when that can happen. That kind of magical connection can happen.
Yeah, and as a teacher, that actually touches my heart, not
Mm,
only as a teacher, but I know that my football coaches, I was like,
right.
yeah, kind of the misled. I was the definition. I wrote it in my book. I was the
Yeah.
definition of a social misfit when I got to high school, okay? Because
Right.
I didn't play for my high school team yet, and my grades sucked. I was one of the few black kids that went to the school, and to their
Yeah.
knowledge, didn't play any sports. So
Okay.
what exactly are you here for, Aswan? And so my and then the next year my teammates voted me captain, and it was the
Cool.
coaches that were pushing me to say, look, you got talent, you're willing to show up. And that's where I
Right.
found my acceptance. And it seems like Mr.
Right.
Gator did the exact same thing for you, to where this is 2 years before high school, and you're
Yep.
getting ready to enter high school thinking that there's something wrong with you, thinking that you have these disabilities. And all it
That's it.
takes, and this is for you listeners out there, especially parents, business owners, so many of you have the opportunity to be the Mr. Gator, excuse me, to me to be the Mr. Gainer in somebody else's life. Just
Right.
show what their talented is, and give them a light, give them, crack a door open for them, do something for them that makes it so their life completely changes, and the trajectory on where they're going is a completely new world. And all you did was
100%.
have them recognize their special abilities. I mean, you're speaking about ADHD as if it's
Yep.
something that's positive now, and to me that's still very mind-boggling to me as a teacher, because again, I'm around it all day. I see the kind
Yep.
of bullshit that goes on in the education
100%.
system. And when I hear people like you that are like testimonials of, man, this is positive, this is a good thing, and you're
Totally.
doing something about it. That's what I got
Totally.
to convey. And that's what I can't wait to get into it with you about, is when you decided to actually do something about it. So, and I spoke about this a couple of days ago because I was asked to actually MC a few events. When it comes
Fun.
to now, this stuff, right? Now somebody asks you, "Hey, Tyler, here's a microphone. You're gonna have to speak in front of 8,000 people.
Right, right,
You're
right, right,
gonna have
right.
to do the public speaking. You're gonna have to actually deliver the message and all of that. That's a process in itself. People don't just wake up and become naturally gifted as public speakers, especially when you're sharing your story as transparently as you share it. So walk us through, I guess, your high school years and then how you eventually were able to land a career in speaking, in being a thought leader, and the whole thing. So,
For sure. Well, so it actually started when I was like in grade 4, grade 5. I won my first speaking competition, and I didn't know that was a thing.
okay.
I wrote a speech. It was a 3-minute speech, and I did a speech about being a baby inside my mom's belly, looking at the world through her belly button. So that was the first speech I ever did. I got a ton
This
of
is,
laughs.
this
I got
is
a ton of
you
like,
said third grade or fourth grade?
yeah, it was like it was like fourth grade. It was around fourth grade. It
Oh
was
man, I
super
gotta
fun.
tell I teach fourth grade now, so I'm gonna tell my
Okay.
look, we're gonna do something. We're gonna do
Yeah,
something like that,
it
right?
was super awesome. And so that was fun, right?
Right.
And then I went to high school. I started the largest student-run student leadership association, or helped co-found that when I was in high school.
Right.
So I was already involved in kind of student leadership, and I was students council president, all that kind of stuff. So I had all this like student leadership clout. I went
Right.
off to university. I took rock climbing, hiking, and canoeing. Applied to one university because that seemed like what I would want to do if I went to school.
Right.
And I took recreation management, so that was groovy.
Right.
In high school, I saw some really cool speakers. I saw that there was a guy named Alvin Law who has
Uh-huh.
no arms, thalidomide baby, plays the
Wow.
drums, drives a car. Groovy, awesome guy. Another guy came, another man, pardon me, Mark Scherenbrock, who is one of the funniest, most amazing Hall of Fame speakers you've ever seen.
Mhm.
Alvin Law is a Hall of Fame speaker as well. I saw another, there was a writer that came to our school who did children's books. He
Mhm.
wrote the book, I'll Love You Forever, I'll Need You for Always, as long as I'm living, my baby will be. His name's Robert Munch.
Mhm.
And he was an amazing, engaging speaker. So I had all these kind of background things happening, doing student leadership, finished high school, finished university, and my dad was permanently disabled. And I was offered work working for like Outward Bound type schools, Hoods in the Woods, kind of adventure-based training, leadership development.
Right.
And I decided that I wouldn't go do that. I'd actually start my own thing. So I started like an Outward Bound company. And after my third gig doing that, somebody said I was really funny. And they invited me to come talk to a high school. And next thing you know, Jostens was taking me across Canada. Then I was into the States talking to high school kids just
Mhm.
about making school the best time of their lives. Now I call Alvin Law, Mark Scherenbrock friends of mine,
Yeah.
which is super cool, because
Right.
I kind of fell into it. So I had all these, I had all these things kind of line up
Mhm.
as really neat experiences and neat connections, but I
Mhm.
didn't realize that there was a plan, right? And
Right.
it wasn't my plan.
Exactly.
It was I just kind of happened to stay on the right path
Right.
to enjoy the fruits of that plan,
That's
which is
actually
somebody
another,
else's plan.
yeah, that's actually another great point you bring up when it comes to being a speaker. And so many people get this wrong when they are aspiring to be in the speaker business. It's not
Yep.
really about how well you speak, to be 100% honest with you.
No,
It's your story. It's
it's your
really
story.
how willing you're willing to tell your story. What are you willing to do on stage? I mean, you mentioned rock climbing. I watched some of your addresses
Yep.
before I got on here. You keep the audience engaged. You keep it energetic. You tell a lot of fun
Yep.
stories. You do shit that's actually going to make it so people remember the day they went to a Tyler Hayden speech. And that's what is important that we convey to people as well who are trying to get into this thought leadership world. And you business owners that listen to me, this is important stuff because you never want to be that business owners that's just managing people. You have
Right.
got to lead people if you want to build and have a solid team. And go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, well, what you're saying as one is you're authentic. I mean, so whether you run a business, whether you're stepping out on stage, whether you're a teacher,
Mhm.
whoever your audience is, they're going to see through whether you're being authentic or not, right? And
Sure.
if you're going to live that authentic, this is my truth,
Mhm.
right? And people are either going to love your truth or hate your truth. That's fine. It's your truth, and
Oh,
it's either
man.
going to become the best business ever, or the business didn't work, you're going to go do something else, but it's still your truth, right? And
Exactly.
that's what matters, is that
Right.
you're living that truth. You're pushing that truth forward.
Right. And well, that leads me to, because I've had situations like, where I've made audiences feel uncomfortable and they didn't ask me back
Sure.
and things like that. So can
Yeah.
you kind of speak a little bit about when situations like that has happened and how you were able to keep going forward, and what was it, and what you took from the situation?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I've spoken to groups of 8,000 in Vegas.
Yeah.
I've spoken
Did you know it
to
was going to be 8,000 people before?
dude, you know what? I thought it was like I knew it was gonna be a couple thousand people.
Right.
But I walked into this like it was huge. It was like a football stadium to me, right? I was like, okay, so everybody's gonna be in here. I'm like, this is crazy. Anyway, it's so fun.
That has
And I've
happened to
done
me
that,
before, though. I know that feeling. You're expecting not. I mean, you expect a lot of people, but like a whole
right?
gymnasium full. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's
That's the
packed.
speaker. Yeah, it's packed. Right. I know that.
Yeah, I'm lucky because I cut my teeth in the school market, so there was
Yeah.
nothing to go into a room of 2,000 students. And if you can
Uh-huh.
hold the attention of 2,000 students,
Right.
they say if you cut your teeth with students and drunks, you're fine. Like if you can keep them and the attention of both of those groups, you'll be fine. And so that's how I learned to speak.
Right.
Until I
Right.
was actually when I was 30 years old, a kid looked at me and he said, "Geez, man," he says, "you're really old." And I'm like, "I'm 30."
Yeah, that's
So I was
young.
like, "All right,
That's
well,
beyond young in our in the thought leadership world. And I actually dealt with stuff like that too. But in the
yeah,
thought leadership world, that's beyond young. 30 years old.
it's
It's like
beyond young."
literally
And
just scratching the surface.
totally. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll go talk to adults. So I moved over and I started working with adults when I was 30. So
Right.
it was a good transition. But when it comes to like negative things that have happened or challenging moments,
Yeah.
I was doing a show once in Alberta, and the power went out in the room. So I was in a hotel. There were about 600 people in the room. Power
Mhm.
went out. So the hotel's like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "Bring in some candles." So next thing you know, candles come into the room. I continue doing my show,
Yeah.
continue delivering the message, and the lights came on for the last 10 minutes. I did about 30 minutes in the dark, and
Yeah.
then or to candlelight, and then they're like, the lights came on, and the audience is like, "Turn the lights off." So all the lights went off, and you
Oh
just keep
man.
doing your thing, right? So I mean, there's hiccups like that all the
Yeah.
time. I've had the flu and had to go on stage,
Yeah.
like lying in the car. I've slept in my car. I slept once and like literally had that light of the train coming in. I thought it was driving over. Like I thought I parked on the tracks, you
Yeah.
know, all those types of, I had a show, my third show or fourth show that I ever did. I only had like an hour of content and I finished it in 30 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And I had 30 minutes that I didn't know how to kill. And that's the only show I've never been paid for. I
Yeah.
refused to get paid for that show. But
Yeah.
yeah, like it just didn't, I got a mental block and I couldn't fill the content. And now I've got hundreds of hours of things that I would just pick and
Right.
pull. And we have a way of building shows. But yeah, that was a huge hiccup, man. So that
Yeah.
happens, but it's the opportunity to learn again, right? It's
Yeah.
whether it's being sexually abused, not being able to read, having ADHD, any of those things, each of those experiences give you the opportunity to go, okay, so what do I do? I got
What?
the swine flu once, and I called
Oh,
one of my
really?
colleagues, and I'm like, "Dude, can you do this show for me? Because I can't get out of bed." And he drove through the night to get to my client and
Oh my
nailed it. Right. So those
God.
are all things, right? Whether it be
Yes.
building your community, whether it be building
Yeah.
your resilience, whether it be building more material, it's all learning opportunities, each one.
Yes. Yes. And I'm very, very grateful that you're mentioning this, because too often, and the lesson that it actually gives is that being in the speaking business, you cannot just depend on that. You got to know
100%.
how you're going to kind of build off the money that you're building in the speaking business. And that's where I want to give you the opportunity to, because you have a pretty cool story about how you came about writing all 28 of your books. Some of them were part of textbooks, some of them had like
Yep.
note cards. And, there was a
Yep.
strategy. When you hear the word 28 books, you're like, oh my gosh, does this guy, all this guy do it, right? But in fact, no, you strategically put them out to where they're part of your curriculum and all of them are serving you in a certain way. So I'll let you kind of explain it now.
100%. Yeah, no, so you're right. I've written 28 books and
Uh-huh.
I've got three more in production. So part of it is my ADHD gives me the opportunity to write a bunch of
Oh
books at
yeah,
one time.
true too. That's another good. That's another great point too. It for the educators, and I actually have a young lady in my class now. She has ADHD,
Yeah.
and even actually today when I was dealing with her, when she draws, or when she like you calm her down and she does something that she enjoys doing, like
Yep.
drawing, she's
Yep.
like knocks it out the park. One of the smartest girls. And I tell her
Yep.
all the time, look, you can be a children's book author. There's ways, there's avenues, there's things you can be doing with the fact
100%.
that, yeah, I get you hate math. Listen, I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD, but I can't stand half the math. I don't know what quadratic equation at all. But there's
Right.
things you can be doing if there's that person in your life to say, hey, focus on the things that you're good at. So
Yeah, I'm on a national board and I drew 30 pictures during our national board meeting.
yeah.
So I do art. That's one of my one
Well, there you
behind me. I
go.
sell my art,
Exactly.
and
Exactly. So
I'll
different forget.
draw, and then I just hand them out to people as they leave. They'll be like, "Hey, can you art a picture of my dog?" I'm like, "Sure." And I'm still doing the meeting. Like I'm still listening. I'm still engaging, and I'm
Yeah.
less of the distraction.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no. So I've written 28 books, and each one kind of has its own place. So most just before COVID, about a month before COVID, I wrote and published and launched my team building book called The Business That Cared About People,
Mhm.
and it was all about in-person team building. The timing was brutal because nobody was interested
I'm
in
telling you, man.
in-person team building, right?
Don't even take us back to that time, boy. That was
Right.
I was in
So
the fitness world too, and I had just put out my first book the
yeah,
same time, literally that month. I
yeah.
was, oh my God,
Right. So then I
perfect
wrote
timing.
the book.
Come on.
Come on, right? And then so I wrote them a book. I gave myself a TikTok challenge,
Yeah.
and in 7 days I wrote my next book called Virtual Team Building or Virtually Engaged Team Building Activities. So it's all around virtual engagement. How do we engage people online? And I wrote it in seven
Oh,
days.
okay,
So
nice, nice. Oh no,
right.
that's
So
perfect. Yeah, because of that time. Okay, yeah.
yeah, so and so
Okay,
that was cool. So and I've tried to write each one of those programs or each one of those books around what now is coursework inside Team Building School. So if you go to
right.
teambuildingschool.com, we're just about to launch our undergraduate program, which
Okay.
is where you can come in and learn all about multiple intelligences and how to create that laser focus with your
Mhm.
teams. We've got downloadable team building activities. We've got 100 different more than 100, probably a couple hundred different icebreakers, rewards, recognition, debrief tools, all that are experiential, all that are built to meet multiple different types of learners. And you can choose the ones that fit your best learners. So that's how I've taken my books. Each one of the books kind of feed either course curriculum or at one point it was too expensive to print playing cards. So I figured out how to write Kindle books and I call them playbooks.
Yeah.
So you actually open the Kindle book for $1.99. I think you can go on Kindle and download Coffee Talk, and it's a programmed kind of group of cards. So as you flip through, they're open-ended questions, and they're at your hand as a manager. You can just keep them in your Kindle, right?
Exactly.
Super cool, super cool. So technology is kind of catching up to some of the things that I wanted to be able to do
Right.
and ways to distribute internationally. So
Right.
it's been a cool ride.
And Amazon, all my books are published with Amazon KDP. And
Yeah.
again, there's Jeff Bezos again, winning,
Yeah.
servicing people, doing something to make it so he's attracting that entrepreneur. He's attracting the people that have ambition and they utilize his platform the best way. And I said this on a guest that we had right before you, actually. We're
Yeah.
saying that if you want to attract your ideal customer and ideal client, you got to do certain things with your platform that's going to attract these people day in and day out. And I'm bringing this up because you've already mentioned team building school quite a bit. And I'm
Yep.
personally interested in hearing, who's it for, how it got started, and if there's anybody listening in that would love to support and be a part of it, what kind of journey do you take them on, and what can you help them with and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you very much for asking. So, Team Building School actually came out of my work with project managers. So, project managers have a direct link to changing teams and constantly work with different teams. There's 12 million of them around the world. So, I was building a lot of content as I was working with PMI. And what I realized is my hard drive was like packed with all of these tools. And I'm like, well, why am I just sitting on them? Like, it's not helping anybody if it's just sitting inside my
Yeah,
hard drive. So I figured out how to do one of these online schools, and I found the coolest one. It's gamified. You get points. There's Easter eggs. There's leaderboards. There's all this cool stuff happening. It's like playing a video game while you're learning.
that's like a
And
platform, like a school platform.
yeah,
What's
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
name of it?
It's cool. It's called Experienceify.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of a
Yeah,
few of them. I haven't heard of that one though. Right. That's
yeah,
yeah, those are cutting edge, right? Yeah, listen, listeners, I mean, it's out there when it comes to possibly just creating your own virtual school. These
100%.
opportunities are out there, man. If you have the material, then there's definitely things you can do.
Yeah, and Experienceify is awesome. Murray's done a great job. He actually aligned a bunch of Nintendo game designers to help build this school platform.
Right.
Super cool. And it's super engaging. Their completion rates for courses are off the hook in the industry. Anyway, I'm
Mhm.
plugging for you, Murray.
Hey,
So
we connect, man. It's part of the
right.
process. When you have good stuff, that's how you get free plugs.
That's it. So yeah, that's 100%. So yeah, so I started putting my material in there, and the goal is to help managers and leaders who
Uh,
want to lead better teams. How do I take service staff and how do I look at what their strengths are and how do I manage them as a result? So we use MIQ for that. What if I have I was working with a project manager from NASA, and she's like, yeah, team building doesn't work. I work with rocket scientists who are engineers. They don't do team building. I'm like, they absolutely do. And I gave her an activity. I said, try this one. And the reason it'll work is because it's measured. It has rules. There's a winner loser.
mhm.
There's all these different things that rocket scientists are going to love.
Right.
And she wrote me back the next day, and she's like, "Give me the next one because they loved it." And
Wow.
it's about how team building is just team learning. Good team building is good team learning. I've said that 1,000 times if I've said
Yeah.
it once. It's about teaching our teams how to learn to be together. It's how to learn how to communicate, learn how to trust, and
Right.
using our innate strengths around learning so that we can begin to utilize and grow from a place of strength.
Right.
People are going to be engaged doing things that they love. So let's give them things that they love and pull them together. I say team building has 3 F's. There's fun,
Right.
fast forward, and fix. And how we utilize those will help us to deliver better team engagement inside of our
So,
workplaces.
what was your strategy towards coming up with the activities? Because again, like I mentioned, like I do with all my guests, I do my research. I listen to
Yeah,
you before you come on this mic. This is what I do. All right.
yeah, yeah.
You
You do a great job.
yeah, you had mentioned something about other managers who would just take their staff out to Top Golf or something like that, or doing kind of cookie
100%.
cutter stuff. How were you able to land on I don't know if it's proprietary, if it's patent pending, but how were you able to land on activities that you knew were going to work and that are yours? And it's like, this is, it's coming from Tyler if it's this activity and it's going to
Right.
work. How were you able to
Yeah.
figure that
So I was reading 2 different books.
out?
So I was reading the book Frames of Mind by Howard Gardner, who is a Harvard professor.
Okay.
And he wrote this book because he figured he was trying to help teachers to send kids towards on learning paths into
Mhm.
careers that they wanted to do. So a kinesthetic kid would want to be like an athlete or a police officer or a firefighter or a
Yeah.
construction worker,
Right.
mathematical, logical, they're, accountants or engineers. So I was reading this book, and then I was reading Mikelchik Sent Me High. He's got a book called Flow, and I was reading his book on flow. Flow for Business is a great addition for your listeners.
Right.
And he was talking about peak experience and how people experience peak experience. And I combined those two thought leaders, and I'm like, okay, so the way that we create peak experience in learning is by being engaged um, through our learning domains. And so what I did is I then built out how the learning domains work in a team atmosphere as opposed to an individual. So I built a tool called MIQ, which is your multiple intelligence quotient, just like an IQ or an EQ.
Right.
It's the intelligence quotient of the team and how we look at what activities we provide based on the types of learners that are inside of our room. So
Right.
we look at the top 3 types of learning intelligences inside of our team. Then through those top 3 learning intelligences, we can start to prescribe and choose activities that relate to how it is that they would want to learn.
Mhm.
So if we have a group of accountants who are mathematical logical, that's typically their top strength. We're going to do an escape room because they're going to love that, right? They're going to love the story behind it. They're going to love the logic questions. They're going
Right.
to love competing against the other rooms. Um,
Mhm.
it's going to be successful. But we're not going to take them and we're not going to take them to a paint night because that's going to be an absolute bomb because
Right.
they don't necessarily have that strength and visual acuity. And what
Right.
managers do is managers tend to go, oh, I heard this person say that this was awesome, or I love to go golfing, so I want to do this.
Yeah, they're from
Those
somebody
are the
else. Right. Right.
Right. So those are the wrong activities to
Yeah.
run. What you want to run is, yeah, I mean, it's like our phones, right? Like
Yeah.
the news you get on your phone is the news you get on your phone, not the news I
Right.
get on my phone, right?
Right.
It's curated for us, and people want the world curated for them nowadays. Team building's no different. We
Exactly.
curate it for the learners. And
Yeah.
by doing that, we create engagement, we create energy. And by creating engagement and energy, when I coach managers and leaders, I tell them, it's not about hiring another FTE. It's about finding 10% of
Right.
extra effort from 10 employees, and you've got another FTE, right? So let's build that energy. Let's build that engagement. Let's build that excitement by delivering through their intelligences.
Right. And also, what you're actually really bringing me to and making me think about is nowadays we have an opportunity to study the psychographics of a person. So when you
Of
mention
course.
accountants, all right, right off jump, you wouldn't even be in the accountant world if math wasn't something that you enjoy doing. So
Exactly.
now let's create an activity. Again, you don't have to, it doesn't have to feel like work, but it could be something fun, engaging, but it ultimately is helping you do your job better. And the reason
Right.
I'm bringing all this up is because that's possible now. It's possible to study the
Yep.
psychographics when you are trying to nail down your target audience. You're trying to nail down your lead, the person that you want to be serving every day. Study those psychographics and then figure out
Yep.
things from that point. That's the luxury you've been given with this internet, is studying the
Absolutely.
psychographics of a person and tailoring the service based on what that would come up as.
And it's idiosyncratic, right? Like, so it's
Yeah,
in the eye of the beholder. Like
yeah,
what's fun for you is fun for you, right? It's
exactly.
not fun for me,
Right,
right? Necessarily. We're going to share things that are fun, but
exactly.
it's what's fun for you. So then how do we create those common on-ramps? So for people who are running team building businesses, if you get a gig with project managers, don't run the same activity that you would with project managers that you would with a rock radio station or a group of graphic designers,
Yeah,
right? You start to curate and pick your activities based on how they learn,
yeah,
not based on what the fruit of the day is and what
yeah,
the flavor of the month club is, right?
right,
Let's really be authentic about who are we delivering to, how are we trying to engage them and bring them forward,
yeah.
and keep them around, right?
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Well, it's just amazing. I want you to kind of share some examples of when it comes together, but it is amazing to see it all come together. It kind of
Yeah,
reminds me of the time when I worked at Orange Theory, and one of the activities where we had a big we were on the beach and we had the volleyball set up, we had
nice,
dodgeball set up, we had a bunch of physical activities, and you saw
cool,
fitness guys, real guys, just come together, going at other gyms. I mean, it's all fun competition, but it felt like
right,
the Olympics, and it's like the Orange Theory
right,
Olympics, and you felt everyone come together, work together, staff, whether you're the seller of the gym memberships, whether you're the coach, whether you're just the person that's cleaning up. It didn't matter what it was. We all came together in this concept of we're all fitness people. We like working
right,
out. Get us out on the beach and let's do what we got to do and compete. So, any
right. Well,
stories about, when it comes to that, like when it all really kind of gels together.
yeah, I mean it's exactly what you described. I mean you curated the activity perfectly, right?
Right,
Like yeah, and that's why you hire somebody like you,
right,
to be able to come in and to lead that activity because
yeah,
and it's as much of the actual physical activity that's happening, but also it's in the debrief and how you transition that learning
uh-huh,
from the volleyball games and the dodgeball to, okay, how does volleyball and dodgeball relate to what we're going to be doing with this new product rollout,
yeah,
or this new way of managing our guests and
yeah,
our clients, right?
right,
So I've had great success from working with police officers. So I had RCMP, the
uh-huh,
Mounties in Canada. We were doing a thing together, but it was all district leaders. So Mounties, who are police officers, are very kinesthetic. They're, your state troopers, right?
Yeah.
They're very hands-on. Probably they played football or hockey or
Yeah.
soccer or
They
something
got
like
that
that.
background that affects back. There's a lot of there's a ton of that. I know. Actually, I was actually doing an interview right here, and there was this cop that was watching an event. It
Yeah,
turned out he was a football player for Florida State, played in the NFL. I got a text from him
exactly.
saying, "Hey man, can I come on your show? Because we got this new 7-on-7 in the league." And it was literally me sitting right here and doing this, and he
Sweet.
saw me doing it. But you're
Love
right.
it.
And they saw my football, he saw and I was like, all right, cool. And that's how it works.
Let's do it, right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So you look at like what those strengths are. So I was working with that, but they were also district leaders, which meant they were interpersonal. Like they were
Yeah.
all about building relationships and how do we connect with people.
Yeah.
And we did some really cool activity. We did the TV show Minute to Win It.
I
I
haven't
don't know
heard
if
of
you've ever
the
seen
minute
that.
to women though.
Yeah, it's like crazy little quick activities. It's kind of like Survivor
That up,
challenges,
that
except
up.
they're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
5-minute activities. So they're just all like rapid
I got it.
succession. Bam, bam, bam,
Got
bam,
it. Got
bam.
it. Got it.
And they loved it because they were working together
Uh-huh.
in these small, very like hyper focused activities. And each one of the hyper focused activities had a direct connection to their strategic plan that was coming down from
Yeah.
headquarters.
Yeah.
So, in the beginning, when we're doing the design, we're designing with that in mind. What are the activities that we want to do? And what's the learning outcomes that we want to create?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And by marrying those two together, you have that successful program. Whether it's ECE teachers, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
I used to work with YPO, the Young Presidents Organization, work with them
I've
for
heard
10
that. Yeah.
years. Um, Great group, high powered executives used to things a certain way. We went out golfing, and I reset the golf course with like they had to hit like hole number 7 with a like a spade shovel.
Right.
We had like a slalom course to do with the golf carts. All that kind of stuff was all competitive based, and it was all fast paced fun.
Mm-hmm.
And not silly. So removing the fluff out of what the team building was, and it
Right.
all had direct implications to what the objectives of that program was, which was a family program. So
Right.
yeah,
Now, have you seen or have you kind of heard how much it helps by reducing the turnover by just simply working with you and doing these activities? Because that's the big thing, especially when it
yeah,
comes to the people in the Move Swiftly world and what we're about, whether it's fitness, athletics, education, whatever.
100%,
It's very
100%.
transient industries that I deal with. And the turnover issue has been the thing that keeps people from growing. And it's, again, these lack of activities. So,
Yeah.
I'd like for you to speak on how it helps when it comes to turnover.
I mean, engagement is
Yeah.
that it's kind of that missing factor. I had a client about a week ago. Well, they're not a client yet because they're like, "Oh, we're still hiring, so we don't want to do the team building until we finished hiring." And I'm like, "Well, you actually want to
I
do
heard
it,
that.
and then you want to do a
I know,
follow-up
right?
program." Because engagement's kind of a funny thing. Like the team changes every time you add a new person.
Mhm.
Engagement stats are like 17% higher productivity from engaged team, 21% higher profitability, 70% fewer safety incidents,
Yeah.
lower B2C, B2B turnover by like 24 and 59%, fewer
Exactly.
defects, 41% lower absenteeism
Mhm.
is one of the other numbers that comes from engagement. And I think the safety one is a really important one. When we look at studies of airplane crews,
Mhm.
the airplane crews that always fly together have less safety incidences than the ones that are coming together on a more ad hoc basis.
Exactly.
So that's the kind of stuff you want to see. We want to see we want people to have that connection so that they're looking out for each other. In construction, I do a lot of toolbox talks where we're doing I just had a call from a construction company, and what they want me to do is they want me to do some team building with their construction workers, because the cost of WCB, of the workers' compensation, is so high that by engaging in a bit of team building, they can reduce their costs to the company, increase shareholder profitability
Mhm.
by actually starting to create greater engagement. Because if a team member is caring and looking out for another team member, greater greater chance that they're not going to lift something the wrong way, or they're not going to drop something on them, or whatever
Yeah,
the accident
yeah.
would be. Those are some of the reasons why we do it. Those are some of the stats that are, it's money in the bank at the end of the day. That's team building, is money in the bank.
It's important to because that's when you leave school, the access to people reduces a great deal. And when you could find a friend that you're at work with, that
Yep.
I mean, I can. You listeners have heard me talk for hours. There's quite a few of them that have been on the show as well. It truly does save lives because it could get very dark and lonely when you're out
Yeah.
there working for a check. You're never gonna have enough money. I'll just tell you that now. Nobody,
Yeah.
never, even damn Warren Buffett is looking for more money. You're
Yeah.
never
He's
gonna have
still
enough.
working, and he's like
You're
90
still
years
working.
old. So
Exactly. So
yeah.
you're never gonna have enough. If you working with people, that's what's gonna make the journey all worth it. And I do want to be very respectful of your time, Tyler. And I want to make sure you get a chance to talk about it a little bit because you mentioned the school, you mentioned that there's
Yep.
things that you have coming down the pipeline. Feel free to kind of speak on that, what the school, how people can get in touch with you, and kind of just go ahead and plug away, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you're interested in learning more about me, you can go to
Yeah.
tylerhayden.com. If you have show notes, we'll throw in maybe some of
Yeah,
the different,
that'll be in the show notes too. But now you
yes, some
said
of
something
the.
is coming with the school though that you said wasn't launched yet, particularly. That's
Yeah, so this week, maybe next week. It's gonna be next week, I think. Next week we're gonna shoot the promo video, and it's gonna be a free course. So it's a quick start guide to team building. You'll be able to find it on Team Building School. So you'll be able to jump online, take a quick start course. We're gonna give you some idea and some understanding around what team building school is all about, how MIQ works,
right.
and give you a free activity that you could try with your teams. And then you can join Team Building School. If you make it through the video, there's a fast action price that is the lowest price that I will ever offer it for inside of the video. So make sure you watch the video. But yeah, we're launching the undergraduate program. The undergraduate program is there's still more tools to go inside of it. So what's there now is only the tip of the iceberg. And then hopefully next year we're going to do a master's program where we're going to do
Oh
some
man,
in
nice.
yeah we're gonna do some programs, do some retreats,
Yeah,
take people who are really serious about building their teams or building a business around building teams,
that'll
and
be
help
huge. Yeah,
them to do that. So my goal is I've done my time in this business, and I've got a ton inside of my hard drive that I just want to share with others, and I
yeah.
want them to use it. So that's
Same
that's
way
the
it
whole
started.
goal.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's about giving it back. I mean, it's that Mr. Gainer moment, right? Like you want to take and you want to give back what you can. So if you
yeah.
come over to Team Building School, there's a ton of stuff already there.
Uh-huh.
There's a bunch of great activities you can download, different tools. The ones with videos of me actually leading the activity, or there's like an instruction video where I teach you how to lead the activity so you can do it yourself.
Yeah,
There's a database of hundreds of team building activities at your fingertips. They're all curated, and I've tagged them all based on the intelligences that it'll work for. So you
wow.
takes the guessing game out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's tons in there. Or you can head over to Amazon. You can buy any one of my 28 books.
yeah,
They're all available
yeah,
through Kindle, or you can get them hard copy sent to you if you like to. If you're like me, I like to read a book that's paper. So
yeah.
yeah, you can get them.
Nowadays we got Audible and stuff like that. So
That's it.
again, if you are serious, and I know for my regular listeners, I know I've been doing this for 5 years now at this point. If you are
Wow.
serious about building your team, this is the Mr. Innovative Teamwork you're talking to, the show on teamwork. You're going to go head over and learn something because, again, even as me being the teamwork guy, I'm always open to share opportunities, whoever's talking about teamwork, because that's exactly what it is. It's working as a team and
100%.
figuring out whose strengths are this, whose weaknesses are this, and let's go get this money together.
Yeah,
Don't go
100%.
try to go get rich
100%.
on your own. Go get this money together and figure out. I mean, seeing it, and I started alluding to it a little bit, seeing teams come together and win. To me, there's no better joy than seeing people come together and go out and win as a team. That's the to me, that's the most beautiful thing in the world. So, all that being said, Tyler, the way I close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination. Excuse me. want you to use your imagination a little bit. Go back to, I guess, sixth grade version of you, right before Mr. Gaynor. Your teenage years, you're probably not too excited about going to school, not too excited about high school and all that. Pretend that that young boy has come into the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
Well, little Tyler, let me tell you, brother love, there is so much love in this world. This world is so much bigger than the little town that you're living in.
Yeah.
Hop on an airplane, go and see the world, make a difference in one or two people's lives. And you know what? That is the best currency you can ever receive.
The mic is officially dropped with that. Have absolutely nothing to add, man. Look, appreciate the work you're doing. Looking forward to staying in touch with you and staying on top of your journey and things like that, and staying connected with you and all that good stuff. Everyone out there, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.